Helps if I mute. Welcome to another webinar live from Darwin Innovation Hub. My name is Dante St. James. And tonight we're going to be talking all about the subject of LinkedIn for Business, something which I'm very close to my heart and probably very close to the hearts of those who are following along tonight as well, because it's basically become, I like to say quite often that LinkedIn suddenly became cool again, like it ever was cool in the first place. But I think the point being that LinkedIn, I suppose, got to a level of maturity. It became a mature platform now that people are finding so much more than just simply recruitment aspects and finding a job, but they're now turning into a place to do business. But what if you are a business already who is looking at LinkedIn as a place to do business? So tonight we're going to go very quickly about optimizing profiles, looking at content and a few strategies for 2025 without going into too much real depth, because what we can cover in 30 minutes is around the evolving LinkedIn landscape, how it's changed a lot lately. We're looking at a little bit of profile and business page optimization, a bit of network growth and content that attracts and converts, but not, again, too deeply. I'm also looking at some of the advanced tools and features that are around in 2025 for LinkedIn. But there's stuff we can't really go deeply into, like specific content strategies or LinkedIn ads, sales navigator, how to become a top voice, LinkedIn premium, diving deep into company pages. There's only so much you can do in 30 minutes. So let's not waste any time and let's get that underway. Just gonna make sure everything's being shared right now, because last week's webinar I did, I never shared it to my Zoom watchers. So if you're watching on Zoom, thank you for registering. If you're watching it on YouTube or on Facebook or on LinkedIn right now, welcome. If you've never come across me before, well, I'm just some guy like everybody who's telling everyone how to use LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn matters because of all those big questions we ask, how many people are? Well, there's about 1 billion, right? Now, that doesn't mean that 1 billion people are on there every day or even every month for that matter. It's probably about, a third of that who are very active on LinkedIn. We don't have the exact numbers. LinkedIn doesn't provide them for us, but we know that there's about 1 billion or just over 1 billion members. Now, it doesn't mean they're active. Like I said, it doesn't mean they're always on there to quite to the same degree that I am or you are, but there's around that many people who are available as members on LinkedIn. It's particularly good as a tool for business to business reaching out. So whether that's you as a business reaching out to others who are a business, or whether it is you as someone seeking a job who's looking for a new job in another company, it's very good for that. One of the things though that happens is that LinkedIn tends to be a very high trust environment. So unlike Instagram was the word I was looking for. Unlike Instagram, where we've kind of become very accustomed to being ripped off and lied to by influencers with fake lives and fake body parts and very fake adventures. We don't see that quite to the same degree in LinkedIn. Now, surely there are people who are faking many things on LinkedIn as well. And I've been accused of that myself a few times. Like, oh man, the reality of my life is so boring. It's definitely not as exciting as what you think it is. But I'm very honest about that. LinkedIn isn't just really about people in tech or people who are in corporate roles. It's got a lot more to it. So if you're looking for work, if you're looking to grow your business, it certainly is a place to do that, because it has shifted from just being a social network for people looking for jobs and recruiters harassing us to apply for jobs to more of a business engine now, which means it's part of that buying cycle or marketing cycle or sales funnel, if you like, to do with businesses. Now, LinkedIn isn't that quick. Post a photo of your hand cream on Instagram and people automatically buy it because it costs them $5 plus shipping. It's a longer buying journey, simply because we're talking about people spending large amounts of money on things like courses, like education, like large industrial machinery and infrastructure. So the buying cycle is much slower. It's a longer buyer journey. So it's going to take a lot of extra touch points before decisions are made on that. Unlike consumers who will have up to 36 touch points, it could be up to 200 touch points when you're talking about business to business, which kind of explains why so many of us are spending so much time and so much effort putting in content on LinkedIn, because we want to make sure that we give those people enough of those touch points to make that decision to either work with us or at least see us as an option when they do need to buy something that we do. It's also a place where the relationship driven sales happens rather than simple cold outreach. And this is why people who do cold outreach fall so flat on so many cases. They will tell us cold calling and cold outreach and what we call pitch slapping on connecting with someone, saying, hey, how you going? And then within 5 minutes, you're hitting them up to buy something from them. It always falls flat on LinkedIn. It doesn't really work that well. And yes, sure, there's some people out there who will say, oh, but I make tons of money by pitch slapping and cold calling people on LinkedIn. Well, sure, they do that. But that will depend very much on the type of business you're doing. If you have no problem with annoying the crap out of people every day for the next 90 days, by all means, go and do that. But you're creating a problem on LinkedIn. You're creating a place on LinkedIn that's not good for anybody. And you'll probably start to find that if that becomes bad enough, it certainly is already bad enough, but if it becomes worse, that LinkedIn will start doing something about that, because the experience on LinkedIn is far more useful to them than some influencer with a $3,000 course who's just hitting people up constantly to go and do their course. It's also a place of heavily driven by educational content, not just from LinkedIn Learning, although that is an excellent platform. We're also talking about the educational content coming from the new brand of personal brands and thought leaders on LinkedIn. So we find that if we're a business, we've got people constantly checking our profiles or constantly checking our company pages. We see them showing up constantly. If you're paying for premium, you see who they are and a lot more of them. But cold pitches are increasingly ineffective because they don't really build trust and familiarity. So this whole idea of a personal brand or perhaps a thought leader comes forward in LinkedIn that you don't tend to see quite to the same degree on your Facebooks and your X's and your Pinterests. And while there are influencers on there, those influencers tend to be very much about consumer products rather than business to business, buying large things, corporate consultants, that kind of thing. A very, very different kind of place. So the trends for the top influencers on LinkedIn have seemed to be around things to do with AI-powered tools. So on the platform, we're starting to see the arrival of more AI-powered tools. There was the AI-powered collaborative articles there for a while, which have thankfully gone away. They were absolutely awful. But it did gamify things. It gave some people a chance to get these little gray badges that made them look like a top voice. So it became a top voice in marketing, a top voice in some sub-niche of a niche where they could go, okay, I've got my little badge. LinkedIn has now pulled that away and only has the LinkedIn allocated blue badges now. But AI powered tools are also there for writing, for commenting, for creating content. There's a lot of AI powered tools, particularly for those who pay for the premium model of LinkedIn. Interesting to note that those AI powered tools are largely driven by the same thing that all Microsoft's Copilot stuff is, which is basically a variation of GPT from OpenAI. So you can find that it sometimes gets things a little bit hilariously wrong, but by and large, they're going down the Copilot path where it's not quite as obvious a tool. You go over here to do LinkedIn AI. You do it all in the platform. Groups are sort of gaining a bit more of a resurgence. So they used to be like the horrible places full of spam, and they still kind of are, just like Facebook groups, right? It's just people with businesses basically spamming 30 different groups every time they post something with a post, and that's all the groups have become, especially local groups. The groups are actually starting to develop niches of their own, and they're starting to self-police and self-correct. So you're starting to see a few industry verticals, some niche industries as well, and also some private, not so much private groups, but just very small groups with a very hyper-focused approach to what they're trying to talk about and the kind of people they're trying to attract. We're also seeing newsletters really gaining traction. I've been running a newsletter now for 140 something weeks. No, about 150, nearly 150 weeks now on email. So it's an email newsletter. About halfway through that, I brought it onto LinkedIn as well. And that has now become a really interesting place for me to start sharing the newsletter, because it's going now to an extra 3,500 people that I didn't have before. And it's a very different lot of people as well. And they have a much higher open rate and a much higher engagement rate of people answering me back with that. Usually I get maybe a dozen replies to my email newsletter. I'm getting like a few dozen replies to my email newsletter, and it's got a much smaller list. Like my email newsletter is 13,500 people, right? But the LinkedIn newsletter is only about 3,500. So it's a lot higher engagement. It's getting me better responses. And I don't worry too much not owning people's email addresses, because I'm not really planning on doing anything spammy or something to get me banned on LinkedIn. So I don't really think I'm going to lose access to that platform. The authentic branding side of it is that we have noticed very much that real stories, personal stories, journeys seem to be the most high impact stuff that's happening on LinkedIn. I share a lot of personal stories. A lot of people I'm connected to too. The raw and the real, as opposed to the pruned and the polished, as you'd see on Instagram, for example, seems to be what really resonates with people on LinkedIn. And you'd think it would be perfect and polished because it's a professional platform, but professionals are still people. They still react to the same things that people react to. But I suppose that when it comes to building the trust, because I don't have to trust an influencer I'm buying a $5 product from, but I do need to trust an influencer who I want to buy a $5,000 course from. So that level of authenticity and rawness is actually really helpful when it comes to business, rather than being all suited and booted and perfectly produced. LinkedIn's AI tools do also recommend content. So they actually show you stuff on the feed that you otherwise wouldn't have noticed or known. And it also helps out with their algorithm to deliver consistently, I guess, relevant content to you. Like any platform, it's highly relevant what you're seeing. I have days, particularly on weekends, where there's so little stuff being put out on the feed on a weekend that I'm seeing a lot of repeat stuff from people I would have seen earlier in the week. So a bit of a hint for you there. If you think that that you would like to get a little bit more reach, people on the weekend who are using LinkedIn tend to see the same stuff over and over again from the same people. So it might be a great idea for you to have some kind of weekend posting strategy to help you along. Apologies for the barking dog in the background if you're hearing that. I'm working out of my parents' spare room at the moment while I'm visiting them in Queensland. So look, when it comes to crafting a magnetic profile, the first thing anyone's going to see is your profile picture, but the second thing they're going to see is your headline and background. So this is where you can create like a really concise, keyword-rich headline that's giving you an idea of what you do. I have very few words on my headline. Basically, educating entrepreneurs, leaders, and speakers, and that's all I have in there. I don't have a great big long thing in there because basically I want my whole headline to show up every time that someone sees a comment from me under a feed as well, rather than something that's truncated and makes no sense because it's like about 50 words long. So that's just a little hint I've had. It also is vague enough that makes people think, what is it you actually do? But it's specific enough that you know who I do it for. I'm educating entrepreneurs, leaders, and speakers. So you know who it's all about, right? An about section is a bit more story driven. I go into my vision and my mission about how I believe that only business can save the world. And that's something that's been very big for me to be doing. But there's plenty of those things to do in your about section. Your featured media, then, if you've got a profile that's a creator profile, and that can just flicking a switch on your profile is to create this creator version of the profile, allows you to have featured media. So I've got a link off to a free mini course that I run, and I've got a link off to my newsletter that happens every Saturday as well. So it's linking off to those. But you can have, PDF carousels, which you see quite a lot of. I think I produced one today, actually. And just something that's going to show some sort of proof of your expertise, apart from here's my resume, here's where I've worked, and here's what I've done for jobs. Now, I'm not going to go into what kind of things work best on all these elements because everybody's got different approaches to it. I followed someone else's approach to doing my profile header, or the background, or the cover photo, as we like to call it on other platforms. So just feel free to do that. I did it for very specific reasons. Have a second photo just to create another personal attachment, some little logos of people I've worked with or companies I've worked with that creates a sense of trust and authentic and show credibility. And then very, very quickly get known, get found, stay known, which puts me in that whole idea of, oh, he does some stuff with marketing, or I do stuff with helping people with raising their profile, any of that kind of thing. Make it really easy for people to understand what it is you do. When you're coming to a company page or a business page, This is where optimizing is a little bit more vague and fluffy because we do very different things on business pages than we do on personal profiles. More people will follow you on a personal profile than will ever follow your company page. On LinkedIn, particularly, people like to follow people, not businesses. They will follow a business maybe from time to time, but the reach from business pages is understandably very, very small compared to the reach of maybe the CEO of that business. So on your business page, you want to showcase a few services of what you do. What do you do that's you, that definitely is your thing? What is your product? What is your services? Have a bit of your brand identity on there and make sure it's nice and consistent throughout. I try to do that a little bit on my personal profile as well, but basically on a company profile or company page, it's almost like an extension of your website. If your website has a certain color scheme and fonts, bring that over to your company page as well, much the same way you would do on a Facebook business page. And then update regularly. Now, it doesn't have to be the most highly produced and polished stuff. It might be a corporate video that's been produced to be showing at a conference. It could be celebrating new employees coming on board, advertising positions vacant, or something to do with the the ESG projects you've gone into just because you want to piss off Donald Trump. Newsletters, that kind of thing are all available through there, and you can run events from your page as well. But it could be a really, really good way to help those individuals who work for you to engage with your page. So you can invite your employees and even your clients to not just follow your business page, but to get them to interact with the posts as well. And there's something we're doing at Darwin Innovation Hub is that our team is going to be interacting more with the posts from the business, mainly because our team all have followings. Their business page doesn't have that great a following. It has a small following, but most of what we're doing is very promotional. But when we put a very much a story in there, we all want to come in there and engage more with it because we want that story to reach further. And then there's the other side too, that employee and customer engagement boosts the reach, but it also provides social proof, which further bumps things up, particularly if it's within an hour and a half of when something is posted. If there's some kind of action on a post from either a person or a company page in the first hour to 2 hours, up to 3 hours, in fact, that helps to sort of flag it as this is potentially good content to spread further than just the people who are following it, particularly as video. So the settings you might want to look at that are really essential if you are looking at LinkedIn as a sole trader, a coach, a solopreneur, any of those kind of one-person business models, creator mode is something you need to switch on. You can find that within your profile settings. You can switch on creator mode, and it helps you to have your content prioritized, but as a creator, which then it signals to LinkedIn that you are doing more than just simply looking for a job. You are creating content, and you are automatically given some priority on things like on the feed and for suggestions of people to connect to. You can also look at hashtags for better discovery. I don't really think too highly of hashtags these days. I don't think anyone uses them, and I don't think they necessarily help with discovery that much, but that could be just the niche that I'm in. You can use your company pages to showcase your company. So highlight your products, highlight your people. Perhaps you've got sub brands, you can set them up as specific pages for distinct audiences. So if you have a business that has a product for adults, a product for teenagers, a product for women, you may want to separate those pages out as brand X for women, brand X for Australians, brand X for people in Japan. Something like that. It gives you double the amount of pages you have to manage, but if you're big enough to have that problem, then you're big enough to hire someone to look after that for you. It also gives you a lot more advanced analytics once you turn on creator mode as well. And you get a whole lot more of that when you go to premium. You're paying for your profile as well. I pay for mine because I make money out of LinkedIn, not from people on LinkedIn, but people find me on LinkedIn, book me for workshops, book me for training and coaching, or book me for specific knowledge work. And that's how I make money. It's my primary channel to do that with, not Facebook, not LinkedIn, not Instagram, just LinkedIn. So you can use those insights now to measure what's working and refine your approach a little bit every time. So if you find particular kinds of content you're making seem to reach further than others, this is where you get your information. It's from your advanced analytics within your creator mode profile. So looking at the different kind of post types that have very high engagement at the moment, short form videos have been really good. There's a lot of talk amongst people that all of a sudden, video is not reaching the way it used to. They've killed off video. They've killed off the video tab on the on the app, and that's mainly because video now is part of the main feed. They don't need a specific tab for it. It's clear that it's been successful. People are watching it, so they've brought it across to the main feed now. They don't need a separate feed just for videos. They don't want to become TikTok, but they want to certainly borrow some of the things that help TikTok to become successful. So 15 to 90-second clips, I think go up to 2 minutes now, actually, delivering quick tips or insights and perhaps a little behind the scenes look inside what you do to help you get more out of life. I post a lot of stuff at my hacks, my morning routines, little things like that that help me to do the things I do. Document posts, which are better known as carousels, so they're PDF slide decks that you can swipe through on a mobile or you can click through on the desktop. They're quite high as well. They kind of went berserk there about 2 years ago and then really just got overdone by people, and then they dropped off. And of course, most creators have no patience to do things that don't get lots of results straight away, and so they dumped it. So now I'm seeing a few people doing it and they're getting quite good engagement from it. Polls, again, were like the bane of our existence about 2 or 3 years ago. They've now come back, I've noticed, and they're quite highly engaging. And so used in moderation, any of these things are great. Now, is there one thing you should be doing above all others? Having been in a webinar last week with the team from LinkedIn Australia and hearing from my good friends who work there, there is no one kind of particular type of content that you should be doing at the expense of all the others. You should be doing a bit of everything. Do a newsletter, do a document post, do a video, do a text post. Text is still remarkably highly engaging and gets great reach on LinkedIn, despite it not getting any reach anywhere else. Polls, use those as well. The whole idea is don't just do one thing, do a little bit of everything, and you'll be able to ride out those trends as they pass. When you build trust with thought leadership, think of this as a personal brand, your version of a brand, right? So this is where you're bringing in insights that you have access to, things that are inside your brain or it's inside your workplace. So looking at original research, is there stuff that you are doing from your industry that you can bring to the platform and share as someone who has insight to that particular industry? Is there data? Is there trends you can bring in? Is there something that only people from that industry usually would understand that might be relevant to people of a wider audience? Personal stories, as I said before, they always reach where facts and ads don't. Very recently, Nike really just nailed it, and Adidas are very much the same by repurposing a lot of the sports stuff they've sponsored rather than producing very expensive ads with very expensive sports models, right? So find the anecdotes in your life that can connect to professional lessons. I went through this, so I can now teach you this, or something like, here's my journey. I started off here, now I'm here. Here's how I got there. And here's some ways that you may be able to get there too. Or if you're still on your journey, you're still trying to get there, well, then talk about the journey, create the journey. My partner is actually creating a video series for 90 days right now to try and explain how he is going on a video making journey. He's going to practice his videos and public speaking in front of everybody on LinkedIn who's following him. So yes, it might be embarrassing, but those kind of journeys are really interesting when they're done in a very realistic way. They're not done to tie in with the fact that Taylor Swift is currently touring the country. They're not done to tie in with Donald Trump and his shenanigans. It's not news stuff. News is for people who are trying to create entertainment content. What we want to do is tie into who we are. That's basically why someone will choose you. If you've got the same qualifications, experience as 50 other people, why would someone choose to work with you specifically? It's down to those personal stories. Then you can collaborate with others to partner with them, do podcasts and talk to people, have an interview, do a collaborative video with each other where you're both talking on the video. Those kind of things add more to your thought leadership, because it's like, oh, they work with everybody, man. Everybody's talking to this girl or this guy. So just make sure you can use a bit of you in there and then share the love around. Don't try to do it all on your own. That's something I've been trying to learn lately, is connecting with more people locally and across Australia to do more collaborative content with. Because I think, when people like each other, they know each other, they like each other, they trust each other, then there's a certain magic that appears. It might be my media background, having worked in breakfast radio shows in regional Australia for many years. But that's the point. People like to connect with people, and they like to see people connecting with other people. When it comes down to when to post, I'll only say that consistency is much better than volume. So 2 to 3 high quality posts per week, definitely better than producing 3 low value updates a day like I do. Now, I'm doing pretty well out of doing that, but I've got a very unique brain that allows me to do this kind of stuff. So it's just, if you cannot come up with consistently good content, drop it down. Just don't have to do it every day. You certainly don't have to do it 3 times a day. I'd probably be getting better reach if I didn't do it 3 times a day, to be honest. But I've got so much in my big fat head that I need to get out there. So I've got tons of stuff to get out there. Plus, I've got systems and processes and a framework that I build all that with. Experiment with your posting times. I have 7 a.m., 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. at my post times. That generally ties into Australian Central Standard Time, because I'm in Darwin, but it's nice and in the middle of sort of everybody time-wise in Australia, so it's not too early or too late for anyone. I don't have data that says that any of those are particularly better than others. I have probably noticed lately that my videos at 7 a.m. don't seem to perform as well as my written posts at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. So therefore, I might need to swap things around a bit, so have a less predictable routine and sort of mix it up a little bit. But that's the fun of experimenting, right? And then use things like the native scheduling tools, so you can schedule things ahead of time. I use a tool called Authored Up, which helps me to better manage my processes as well. But I also use an external posting tool that allows me to post to LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, who else? Facebook, Instagram, all at one time, and then repeat those posts if I need to. So tools are great. Don't get too heavily into them. Just get yourself right on one platform and then spread out, right? So don't need to necessarily hit everything up. Just do one thing, do that, get comfortable with it, then move on to expanding into others. When it comes to connections, be targeted. Don't just connect with everybody who says they want to connect with you, because if I did that, I probably have over 100,000 connections right now. And the ridiculousness of that will be is that I cannot possibly manage or have relationships with 100,000 people, and I don't have a mass sales product that I need to get to millions of people in order to sell it. So I'm not going to connect with everybody who approaches me. Most people in Australia who approach me, I will connect with them. If you're outside of Australia, you probably wouldn't connect with me. I probably won't connect with you simply because I don't work with your country, and there's no common theme between us apart from the fact that you saw me come up on a search and you decided to connect in case you want to sell your web design, video editing, or SEO content strategy to me. Personalize your invitations a little bit, just a little bit of context when you send out an invitation, such as it doesn't have to be something as bad as, I notice we're both interested in X. I get those all the time and they're just really bad. So what we need them to do is just to calm it down, just reference to something you've got in common with them that's actually real, not something which is not something with, sorry, I just got like a billion dogs barking around me at the moment. Welcome to working from mum's spare room. So the personalized invitations are giving you a chance to be able to be real and be authentic. If you have to copy and paste your invitation, you're doing it wrong. And that's probably the kind of invitation I'm going to ignore from you every single time. There's actually someone on this call who sent me a really good opening introduction connection request, and we connected, and we just have had chats since then, and we're going to connect even further because it was real. It wasn't a very fake copy and paste invitation. Try and avoid automation tools because they tend to get penalized and can get you banned from the platform as well. So relationships, right? Have daily engagement, like people's stuff, comment on people's stuff with meaningful engagement. I'm not talking about great post dude or happy smiley face or fire emoji or something like that. Be real about it. You're better off doing less engagement with real comments on there than fake engagement. So I've got a bit of a pattern I use, which is I will first thank them or agree with them what they've done, and then I'll say, and I will add. So I add something onto it. You'll see as I'm starting to move around different people's profiles, you'll see that I do a lot of that. I was go, Yes, I agree with that, particularly when you talked about blah, blah, blah. I will add, and then I'll add something that I've got to say in there as well. That's hopefully not just repeating what they've already said, it's adding a little bit of my perspective in there too. If you're going to send messages to people, be meaningful, focus on value, not sales. Yes, we all need to make money. Yes, we all need to sell. But as we said before, it's trust that brings on longer term sales. No one's going to buy things from you instantly on LinkedIn. This is not Instagram where you're buying a $2 gadget from Temu. This is LinkedIn. It's business to business. So when you're selling something to someone, it's going to take a lot more touch points than, hey, you should buy my stuff. Let's connect. And offer some value, either through introductions to people in your network, referrals of work to other people, or if it's just simply providing an answer to the question people are asking. I've got a question before from someone asking me whether this particular threat they got in their inbox was from Meta, because it was threatening to shut down their account. I said, no, it's not. It's a fake one. Most of those things are. That usually they will send you some kind of warning, and there's a place called your account health, which you can go and look at. So I added that into the direct message. So they got value out of that. They see me as the expert in that space. And then they know that whenever someone asks them and says, hey, do you know someone who knows enough about Facebook stuff? And they go, oh, you got to see Dante. He knows all about all that. So just spend a few minutes. I spend about half an hour every day engaging with my network's posts. And I do it a couple of times through the day. So 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, just to keep that going. They're more likely to return the favor and comment on your stuff too if you comment on theirs. Converting connections into business is all about, a bit of a warm outreach, perhaps doing events and webinars. This is why I'm doing a webinar right now. It's part of my converting connections into business, and showing that I know what I'm talking about and have some experience in this. And then tracking and following up. I use a CRM called TrueBlue Connect, which is a variation of Go High Level, which I use to basically track all my incoming inquiries, my LinkedIn messages, everything I'd need to be able to create a place to have some sanity and some organization to my follow-up. So that's, you use the standard stuff you would use outside of LinkedIn to work with people on LinkedIn. AI tools, don't copy and paste. The integrated content suggestions are great. I don't think necessarily LinkedIn is really looking at helping you to create content from scratch, although there are some tools that are looking like they might be heading down to at least the text side of that. Use AI tools, I do, for brainstorming and scheduling. By all means, do that for research, for fact checking, all that kind of thing. I even use Midjourney for creating some of my images that I use. Use personalized messaging. You can target your outreach at scale, but what I would do is create something where you say, I want to say this to 50 different people. Please give me 50 different ways of saying this. So it's not then the same thing over and over and over, because that's the sending out of repeat messages in very quick succession to people you're not connected to, or even that you are connected to, is a red flag to LinkedIn. And be compliant. User-centric approach is following LinkedIn's terms and their rules. So look at what those are. Realize that half of the tools out there that are dealing with LinkedIn lead generation are actually against their terms of service and could get your profile banned. So be careful with tools, use them smartly. Don't just copy and paste, and do not automate things on LinkedIn, because you'll only lead to yourself getting banned. Newsletters and groups are where the future seems to be, just in the immediate future at least. When it comes to newsletters, the LinkedIn newsletters, I'm getting great reach for them, great results out of them. And that's where people are approaching me directly after a newsletter. I get inquiries for products and services. On my newsletter, I've got links through to my free tools and my free webinars and free workshops. I don't charge anything for those things for people, but what I'm doing again is creating a place where you can see that I have expertise in a number of areas and that I can be paid for those things if you need help with those things. The groups, as I said before, are revitalizing a bit, so it's really good to see them coming back. Monitoring your engagement metrics and monitoring what you're doing online in general comes down to looking at your insights or your analytics within each platform. If you don't know where they are, just look for the insights or look for analytics, and that will show you how things are performing. I've got some external analytics tools I use which show me trends over time, certain topics, certain content types that I know that are performing well. But you don't need to go that sophisticated. I just do it because it is a very core part of my whole sales and lead strategy. Well, so next, try one thing this week. You don't have to do all those things. Try one thing this week, and then keep continuously building new material and refining. So if you've got an outreach strategy you want to use, then test it. If it doesn't work, try something else. If it does work, double down on it, try it again. But for goodness sake, be authentic and consistent. Most people are going to start putting some strategies in place and they'll give up after 2 weeks because they haven't got a mountain of sales coming in. I got no sales whatsoever, no inquiries whatsoever for 2 years. And then I did. And then I get lots of them. So that consistency is something I just tell you again and again and again. Stay consistent. Doesn't mean posting the same time every day. It just means making sure you post in a cadence that keeps you active. It doesn't have to be every day, every 2 days, every 5 days. It just has to be consistent and regular. It's a continuous process, but start with just one thing first. If you're in Darwin, though, we've got a group called LinkedIn Local Darwin, which is as much about LinkedIn as it's not about LinkedIn, but on March 25 at the Darwin Innovation Hub from 5:30 p.m. Got a panel of Gen X and Gen Z employees and people to compare their approaches to careers and businesses. So it's really interesting to hear them talk about their generation and how they think of things such as employment, workplace conditions, and things like hybrid or working from home arrangements. Also, the graduation of the Code Up NT intern program that's been running in the Darwin Innovation Hub as well. There's going to be a ton of food and drinks and networking. If you want to meet people of a different generation to yourself, that's where you need to be on March 25. Darwin Innovation Hub at 5:30 p.m. You can find out more of these wonderful webinars at darwininnovationhub.com.au. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for joining me. It's been fantastic having you on here. Mostly what I want to do, though, is just say, well, thank you for being part of yet another one of these crazy webinars where I'm trying to run 15 different tools at once. It's hard work doing this. Now I've got to stop my screen sharing on LinkedIn and you're back to me. So have a fantastic week.